If you saw our video on the Texas Receptus, or the answer to the question, what is the Texas Receptus? In that video, we explained that whenever you study the history of ancient Bible manuscripts, you're not studying one history, you're studying two histories. There is a pure line of Bible manuscripts, and there is a corrupt line of Bible manuscripts. The pure line of Bible manuscripts that were used to produce a text upon which our King James Bible is based upon, that text is referred to as the received text, or in Latin, the Textus Receptus. But on the other side of the fence, you have the corrupt line of manuscripts that culminated in a Greek New Testament that we refer to as the critical text. And the critical text is the New Testament basis for just about all of your modern, almost all of your modern English Bible versions out there that are in competition with the King James Bible, such as, such as the NIV, the ASV, the New ASV, the New American Standard Version, or New American Standard Bible, the English Standard Version, and a whole slew of others. All of these modern versions are based upon what we refer to as the critical text. And we Bible believer Christians reject the critical text because we recognize through history that the critical text reflects a corrupt line of manuscripts that were corrupted by heretics dating all the way back in the 2nd, the 3rd, and the 4th century. Okay? The critical texts are based upon a very small minority. There are thousands of Bible manuscripts, over 6,000 in Greek, over 10,000 in Latin, and hundreds more in other languages, thousands more in other languages. But the critical texts are based upon a very small minority of corrupt manuscripts that were rejected by Christians for over 1,800 years. And of that small minority of corrupt manuscripts, the two most prominent of them are known as Vaticanus and Sinaiticus. Vaticanus simply just means Book of Vatican, because that's where the Vaticanus manuscript was rediscovered. It was rediscovered in the Vatican Library back in the mid-1400s. And then you have the Sinaiticus manuscript that was a German rationalist named Constantine Tischendorf claimed to have rediscovered in the 1800s. Okay, these manuscripts, Vaticanus and Sinaiticus, and that Alexandrian line of manuscripts that represent the majority. A Bible scholar back in the late 1800s named John William Burgon, recognized as Dean Burgon, the great dean of the Anglican Church at that time, Dean Burgon, he says in his book, The Traditional Text, on page 33, quote, "These codexes abound with so much licentiousness or carelessness as to suggest the inference that they are in fact indebted for their preservation to their hopeless character. Thus it would appear that an evil reputation ensured their neglect in ancient times, and has procured that they should survive to our own long after multitudes which were much better had perished in the master's service." In other words, end of quote. In other words, Dean Burgon was recognizing that the reason why these very corrupt manuscripts have survived for so long was because nobody was using them. Nobody was using them. There are a lot of manuscripts that are ragged and have been worn out because of use, because it was the true word of God. Bible-believing Christians, they use their Bibles. They read their Bibles. They wear out their Bibles. I'm reminded of a dear sister. She's gone to be with the Lord now, but I'll never forget this elderly sister in a church I pastored on the mission field. When she got saved, I stuck my foot in my mouth and I told her, I said, "Sister, anytime you need a new Bible, you come to me and I'll get you one." Well, I underestimated how much she was going to read her Bible, but I would buy her a leather-bound Bible and she would wear that thing out like every 3 or 4 or 5 months. I was buying her multiple leather-bound copies of the Word of God every year, because she would wear them out through use, through witnessing and reading it and studying it. That's what Christians have always done. We wear out our Bibles because we use them. We love the Word of God, but a Bible that's not being used, it's just one that is just sitting on a shelf collecting dust somewhere, well, no wonder it's preserved. That's what Burgon's point was, that Vaticanus and Sinaiticus were not used because Christians recognized that they were corrupt. There is no evidence whatsoever in history that anyone used the Vaticanus and Sinaiticus manuscript to translate the Word of God. Not one time anywhere in history, there's not one single shred of evidence anywhere in history that Vaticanus and Sinaiticus was used. Okay? Even Kersop Lake, who was not a pro-Textus Receptus, pro-King James individual, even he recognized how corrupt the Codex Sinaiticus was. He says, quote, "The Codex Sinaiticus has been corrected by so many hands that it affords a most interesting and intricate problem to the paleographer who wishes to disentangle the various stages by which it has reached its present condition," end of quote. Even Kersop Lake, a textual critic, even he recognizes how corrupt Sinaiticus was. It wasn't until the 1800s that Orthodox Christians succumbed to the plot to undermine the received text. In 1831, a fellow named Lockman produced a Greek New Testament that was based upon the corrupt Vaticanus manuscript. That was in 1831. And then this fellow Constantine Tischendorf, the man who claimed to have discovered Sinaiticus in a waste paper basket. That's what he claimed to have done. I'll do another video where to show where his claims were contested, but that's a whole nother discussion for another video. Anyways, when Tischendorf back in from between the years 1841 to 1869, he did a series of editions of the Greek New Testament based heavily upon the Sinaiticus manuscript. And then there were others who produced editions of the Greek New Testament that were based upon these Alexandrian manuscripts, such as Alford in 1849, Wordsworth in 1856, Tregelles in 1857. These corrupt Alexandrian-based Greek texts became known as the critical texts. In 1881, the critical texts were made popular. So before 1881, there was a movement started in the 1800s. I'll call it the critical text movement, a movement to produce a whole new Greek New Testament that would reflect a totally different line of manuscripts than that of the Textus Receptus. And then their desire was to use this whole new, revamped Greek New Testament to produce new English Bibles, to contradict or to be in competition with the popular and prominent King James Bible. In 1881, the critical texts were made popular finally. They were ignored throughout the 1800s. None of those different critical text editions gained much ground until these two individuals showed up. Fellows by the name of Benjamin Westcott and Fenton Hort. They finally produced a Greek New Testament using the Vaticanus, Sinaiticus, and Alexandrian manuscripts back in 1881. These were men of great influence in the Anglican Church, and because of their popularity and influence, they were able to produce not only a brand new Greek New Testament, but a brand new English Bible, the English Revised Version, produced in 1881. They produced that Bible, and this was the first major attempt to dethrone the King James Bible and the Textus Receptus. And when Westcott and Hort and the other men that was on the committee, when they got together to produce a revision of the English Bible, it was not agreed upon that they were going to produce that they were going to use a whole new Greek New Testament to base a whole new English translation of the Bible. That wasn't the agreement. What they thought was, we're just going to make some updates, okay? in the English Bible that we already have, which would be the King James Bible. But what they did was they smuggled in secretly a whole new Greek New Testament. Will call it the Westcott Hort text. Okay, it's the Westcott Hort edition of the critical text. They smuggled their edition of the Greek New Testament to totally replace the Textus Receptus and the King James Bible, and they made what is known as the 1881 Revised Version, and that same Bible was reproduced on American soil in the year 1901. That version is known as the American Standard Version. Westcott and Hort's hatred for the Textus Receptus was no secret, as they referred to it as villainous and vile in their writings. Today, Westcott and Hort's corrupt text has been regurgitated in the text produced by Eberhard Nessel. I think he has about 28 editions. And then after him came along Kurt Aland, and he did a few more editions. And then back in the 1950s, a fellow named Eugene Nida, with the United Bible Society, they produced several more editions of the Greek New Testament, which is basically just a regurgitation of Westcott and Hort's text. Okay, and this has formed the basis for a lot of new Bibles, such as the NIV and others like it. Okay, so that's a little bit of history as to the corrupt critical text. And it's very important for you as a Christian to recognize the difference. Someone might ask, why all these different Bibles? Why are they so different? Why does the NIV, the ASV, the New American Standard Version, the English Standard Version, and all these other new ones that are coming out all the time, why do they read so differently than the King James? Why do they have key words missing, key phrases missing, key verses missing? Well, the reason why, and other things added that shouldn't be there. Things changed that should not be changed. Why these differences? The reason why is because these new Bibles are based upon corrupted texts that we call the critical texts. And the critical texts are corrupt Greek New Testaments, corrupt because they're based upon a line of manuscripts that Christians for over 1,800 years have always recognized to be corrupt, and therefore were rejected for over 1,800 years. This is what is referred to as the critical text, and it's very important for you as a Bible believer, if you're going to form a strong conviction on Bible versions, you need to know the difference between the pure line of manuscripts and the corrupt line of manuscripts. The received text versus the critical text. All right. God bless you.